This clip is brought to you by SaveWithConrad.com.
Let's talk about, and this is a fun one because we've teased it before. Austin writes, can you talk more about the schedule on the road? We've heard that you guys would get to town, go to the gym, etc. Did you have to pay for gyms, or were those guys always fans? And also, does Arn have any Jake Roberts stories? So we'll table Jake Roberts for now, but just carry me through, and we won't talk about your most recent WWE run. Let's talk about maybe back in the Crockett days, what the schedule looked like when you would get to town and try to find a place to eat and a gym and the whole deal.
Well, once we started flying and you were landing in a different town, it would just depend on are you flying private or are you flying commercial, because plane schedule was completely different. When we first got the private planes and we started leaving later in the afternoon, of course, you would get up and train in Charlotte, go make a town, come back that night. Anytime you had time in the afternoon, but if you had to leave early in the morning, you would get to the town. First thing you do, get your rent-a-car. If you were going to be staying over, which was very rare because you always wanted to get to the next town that night, then you would go find a gym and not check into a hotel. Now, if you were going to check into a hotel, you would get your rent-a-car, you go check in a hotel so that you got that out of the way. Make sure you grabbed a towel, threw it in your bag so you didn't forget it for that night, and then you would go find a gym. And it's funny, you asked about paying. When business was hot, wherever I was, whatever territory, when I first got to Jim Crockett Promotions, business was not on fire. It just wasn't. And you would go to gyms and nobody knew who you were. Nobody was watching. Nobody was coming. You weren't a big deal. You were just, you would come in, so, hey, it was the same pitch every time. Hey, how are you, sir? I'm from out of town. I'm just passing through. If they would ask, you would tell them what you were there for. If not, you would just say, I just wanted to use your facility for the day today. I'll be here an hour, maybe an hour and a half. That's it, tops. And when your business was not hot and they didn't know who you were, you would pay a day fee. And that would be anywhere from, back in those days, $5 to $10. $10 was a lot of money back then, but your livelihood depended on being in shape. So you was not an option. You were investing in your own craft, in your own body, your own livelihood, your own profession. So you pay whatever, if it would have been $20, which would have been huge money back then, you would have paid it because you had to go to the gym. Then you would go to the gym, knock it out, come back, hopefully have a couple of hours. Some guys like to eat a little something. Then I had about a 5-hour window before wrestling. I have such a slow metabolism. I couldn't eat about 5 hours or so. So I'd make sure when we're going to be training in the afternoon, I would eat early. I'd eat a couple of light meals early, first thing in the morning, then something about mid-morning. Then I wouldn't eat again till after the show. But that was about it. Now, when business was red hot, you couldn't pay. When everybody was watching, the numbers were up on TV, people were coming to the matches. It's funny, it was just wrestling was hot. It's like when Jim Crockett got hot and the WWF got hot, they were already half-ass hot. But when we went into competition with them, it was like, oh shit, the wrestlers are here. And it was a big deal. It just depended on the complexion of the business, on whether you paid or you didn't. But then you would make a round and you would start to learn where the gyms were. And because you went to the towns a lot more regular in those days than you do now, obviously. And guys would start to know you, and there would be some familiar faces. And after a year or so, you were home team. And then it turned into 2 years, and they became like acquaintances. And then the third year evolved. And damn, if they were still at the gym or whatever the deal was, you'd become friends with these guys. So it was a different era, different whole story and whole evolution of the business period.
Eldridge writes in, given the recent talks about the late Nancy Benoit being in the Hall of Fame, who's on Arn's Mount Rushmore of wrestling valets? We haven't spent a lot of time talking about that, but Man, back in your day, you worked with some greats, some legends, wrestling valets. Do you have like a top 4?
I have a top 3, and it would be Elizabeth, it would be Nancy, and it would be Sherry Martell.
Yeah.
And I would probably hold out that last slot to see what evolves in the next 10 years or so. But those 3 right off the top of my head.
Rick Chance Richardson wants to know, who are some of Arn's favorite referees to work with?
Nick Patrick was awesome. Charles Robinson is awesome. Tommy Young was a great referee. Chad Patton, great referee. And I'm sure somebody's going to get left out. Marty Elias, when I first got to WWE, as far as a agent and producer, I enjoyed his work. He was with Lucha, I think, as late as this last season they were there. I think he was working for them. Been a lot of great referees that I've had the good fortune to work with.
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell so you get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And go save yourself some money right now. If you're in a 30-year loan or you have credit card debt, it's not a matter of if I can save you money. It's a matter of how much. Find out right now for free at SaveWithConrad.com.